they like your design, if something that you do is so cool that they memorize it, they're gonna like your product. And that's kind of stuff that makes certain products very memorable in terms of how come certain games are so cool and some are not, right? And of course, it's never one formula, but a lot of it has to do with, you often case if a professional studio is doing something, then the entire package is professional, right? Because they have professionals working on it. So from the music to the gameplay to the design, they're all good, and that's kind of the magic formula that most production houses are looking for. So as a designer, you want to do your part. You want to make sure your part is cool as you can get it to, right? No matter the scope of the project, and you just hope that everyone else on board is doing the same kind of goal, right? Which is doing the best that they can. So, anyways, let's get back to the technical part of this drawing. So the canvas is 12,000 pixels wide. Height I forgot, but it's quite big as well. So this is a very big file. You're gonna need a lot of RAM to work in this kind of a resolution. Everything else is just drawn with a chalk brush, once again, the default brush. Right now we're only at 2 layers. You have the background, kind of the rough drawing, you can see very rough underneath it, and then you have this clean line drawing on top. This entire process took a while to draw because line drawing is actually much slower than painting. So it took about a few hours to get this whole entire thing drawn out. And then the presentation side is much faster. That took a little, maybe about 20 to 30 minutes to do the presentation, which you'll see in about a few minutes here. Yeah. So here's a side view drawing showing all the functionality, the arms. The little things in the back, those little wing things, have some color on it. Because in nature, sometimes these kind of very dangerous animals often have warning patterns, like snakes or poisonous frogs. A lot of beetles have this kind of coloration, right? Just to warn the enemy, hey, don't get close. I'm poisonous, or I have something on me that could kill you. So I thought, hey, those would be kind of cool to incorporate into this alien's design as well. These kind of colored neon orange wings, right? And because the animators can have a lot of fun with that. So when you're animating this guy going into an attack, maybe he'll raise those things into the air and kind of flutter them like a rattlesnake tail or something. And the sound designers could then use that to create some kind of effect. So all those kind of things you are doing, you're feeding the production, and that is the role of a designer. Your job is not to just draw a pretty picture; is to aid in the entire production pipeline. The more you could do, the better you will be in terms of contributing to the project, right? And the more your client's gonna like you because they're getting their money's worth when they hire you. That they could get so many different usage out of you. You're inspiring the sound guy, you're inspiring the animator, you're inspiring the story guys by giving them these cool acts that they could do, right? Even this guy, you could say, even how he captures the human soldiers could be part of the storyline, for example, right? So all that kind of stuff you're trying to contribute, and those are the kind of things that when you approach a design, try to think about it. And it's something we try to encourage that for our students, right? Because even for myself, when I was young, when I designed, it really wasn't thinking really about anything. It's just drawing stuff on a piece of paper until you find something that looks cool, and then make that cool drawing into something. Versus nowadays, after I went through design school, you always try to think of out first. What does it do? What is this thing made out of? How does it function? And it'll give you about 20-30% there. It'll give you some kind of answer, and from there you go forward. And that actually, in the production pipeline, is very, very fast, much faster than, for example, just drawing until you bump into something you like, right? But again, design has all forms. This is just one way because I use both. I use the drawing random stuff and getting something else also. It just depends on the scope of the project. When something is very specific, like recently I finished a project where clients are very specific on functions. Like this needs to do this, needs to do this, needs to do that. This part connects to this and do that. If you have that kind of direction, you can't simply just start drawing random stuff. You have to incorporate those functions always into design. Otherwise, you're delivering a product that the client didn't ask for, and they're not going to be happy with that, right? So if they ask for a spaceship that could land on, for example, that could land on water, for example, and you design something that's extremely heavy that doesn't look like it can sit on water at all, they're not going to like that. They're going to be like, this makes no sense. It's not what we asked for. So design is challenging. You have to incorporate so many different things into your process. So here I'm just wrapping up the line drawing stage, almost done. I'm just drawing some detail drawing, and all of this is for presentation. So we're trying to make this, or the goal here is trying to make it look like one of those kind of scientific illustrations that you see sometimes in National Geographic, or even in biology books, right? And the goal here is like, yes, this alien doesn't exist. Why are we doing all this? Because you're trying to sell the idea. You're trying to get the clients to look at this and buy your idea. They say, hey, this is pretty believable. Even though it's made up and this will never work in real life, but there's some kind of belief to it, right? There's some kind of connection to the real world. So if the clients buy it, you buy it, everyone else on the team buy it, most likely the person who's going to be enjoying this product in a video game is going to get it as well, right? You're playing with the perceptions, the human recognition. Again, going back to Sid Mead's quote there, right? Which just read again. Every design challenge relates to something that resonates with human society, human recognition, and human sensibility and human desire for fulfillment. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're pulling things that are real from this planet, combining it in a certain way that is different, but yet someone looking at it will still understand what it does. Right, random design sometimes is very dangerous, which is just drawing a monster with a bunch of spikes on him, doing no idea what he actually does. It's very confusing because when a player sees that, they don't understand your design, right? And I mentioned this a long time ago in a very early tutorial, which is racing games, for example. It's a good analogy. There's games like Gran Turismo which base their designs on real cars, right? So when a player has a, for example, Volkswagen Beetle versus a Ferrari, they know exactly the performance of the car. They know the Ferrari is much faster than the VW Beetle. But some games, for example, don't have the license for real cars, so they use fake cars. For example, Disney's what do they call Split Second and these kind of titles, they have made up cars. And for some reason, you don't connect with these cars as much because you have no relation to them, right? There's no branding, there's no building behind them. So between the, say, Z052 model and the M72, you have no idea, even though they all look sexy and cool and whatever, you have no idea of the performance. And it's the same thing here with design. If you're doing an alien design or a spaceship design or a suit design, you have to incorporate some type of reality to it. So if I see it, I get that, okay, this guy is a medic, this guy is a heavy armor guy, this guy is this, right? Because you are a visual designer. The context or the products you're working on are always visually based, and visual means you have to tell the story with your eyes, right? The audience must understand it through the eyes. So hopefully that helps some of you younger designers out there think about an approach to design, and it actually speeds stuff up dramatically versus just drawing randomly to arrive at a design. So, and oftentimes you could tell a professional sketchbook is very different than, for example, someone's just drawing to arrive at design, because a professional sketchbook often contains ideas. They're trying to flush something out, like they have an idea for a helmet and they're drawing variations of how this helmet could work. How do you take it off? How do you wear it? What's inside? What are the materials? Right? And once they arrive at that, then they draw the final, versus just complete chaotic shapes and forms. So. But as a younger student, don't worry about that stuff too much because it comes hand in hand. Drawing is good by itself. That's, remember, 50% of what we do, right? We have to use art to communicate. The other half, which is design thinking, that'll be entire, I mean, both of it are entire life investments. You're going to have to constantly do those. But draw first. You have to get good at drawing. Just like before you write a book, you should learn your grammar. Right, versus like, what kind of book should I write? But then don't even understand how to write in basic grammar. So study the fundamentals first, and then as you get to design, start just challenge yourself with some kind of parameters. Right. I think a best designer is one that is restricted versus a open design challenge, right? Because sometimes I've been on projects or even in schools where they give the students like, what is the spec? There is no spec. Do whatever you want. And what it comes back is actually just doing, just most time if they're lazy, just do whatever's default, right? Because there's no parameters. The harder thing to do actually is to challenge the students, give them some kind of parameter they have to fit in. That design must solve a problem within very constrict environment. That is a much better challenge than to, for example, design me a futuristic world and you could do whatever you want, versus a futuristic world, but then there is no more power, there's no more diesel, there's no more oil, and the sun's been kind of half blocked out or something, and design a world based on that. That is much harder to do. Anyway, so the drawing part is done here. I'm speeding this stuff up here. I'm not going to show you guys this process because it's very quick. Just basically digital marker, just throw some value. But try to again achieve the the 1800s. You see in the cowboy, this kind of Hollywood thing where they find this blueprint in an old shack or something. That kind of look, very math scientist finish, which is very effective and it's very quick because this still gives the look of a concept drawing versus a finished rendering, which I talked about earlier. If you present something that's too finished, the client might get freaked out because they're thinking, oh, this is it, this is the only design I got. In this way, it still looks like something that's work in progress. And normally you will not turn in just this one design that you see here. You probably follow this up with two other ones. So you have 3 different monster designs. So, but the process is quite easy. This is just taking something, some kind of paper that's been scanned in, extracted some of those, put some splash marks there, here and there. But don't forget the presentation. Don't let that overpower your drawing or design itself. Right? The design here is still the key. So here, just drawing some white highlights to pop things out. Here are the formation of this monster. This is a top view, so you can see how this monster could utilize the humans in different kind of formations. So this could be used by the animators as well as the game designers to help flush the product out. Right. So you can see for one little presentation here, we're kind of covering all different kind of bases here. So you're really making the client get into your design. So even if they don't like it, there's a lot of ideas here that we could use. Maybe we don't use this monster design, maybe we use something else. But at least you're presenting enough variation within this one design to give them that freedom. So anyways, as this thing is wrapping up, I'm just going to show you guys. If you want a high-res version, just go to my Twitter. You could get that from my website. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it and have a happy Christmas. I'll see you guys in the new year. All right, guys. Bye-bye.